Those who knew her say Katharine Hooper was an utterly devoted mother to her children. But shortly before midday on Friday, she fell 100 feet with her 5-year-old son Josh from the Hay Tor rock formation on Dartmoor. Within minutes, an air ambulance, a police helicopter and members of the Dartmoor rescue group were on hand, but both Katharine and Josh died there at the scene.
Katharine Hooper, who went by the name Kat, was a young woman originally from Widdicombe-on-the-Moor, who lived in the seaside town of Paignton in Devon. When she was just 17 years old, she started dating a man by the name of Neil Patterson. Neil was 45 at this time, meaning there was a significant age gap between the pair of around 28 years. 2 years into their relationship, the couple had a son together by the name of Joshua Patterson, before going on to have another son together, Samuel Patterson. The family lived together at a house on Duke's Close in the QED estate of Paignton. Neil and Kat were described as having a tumultuous relationship together, with loud arguments often coming from the home. One neighbour described Neil as being controlling of Kat, not allowing her to speak to friends or even go outside. In 2013, after an alleged physical altercation between the pair, Neil Patterson appeared before a magistrate's court and pleaded not guilty to assault by beating. Then in May, after another huge argument, Katharine took her 2 sons from the home and was reported missing. This led to public appeals, and police launched a major search and rescue operation to find her. Around 24 hours later, Kat was found, laid semi-conscious in a field covered in mud. She was taken to hospital and treated for dehydration and hypothermia. Her sons Joshua and Samuel were taken into temporary care. It was around this time that Neil moved out of the family home and moved away from the Paignton area. Katharine was suffering with severe depression and struggled with anxiety, though her children would be returned to her around 6 weeks later. As a now single mother, Kat was forced into giving up her job at a local hotel, further isolating her into her home. After the boys had been home for 2 weeks, on the 11th of July 2013, Kat took a taxi from her house with her eldest son, 5-year-old Joshua. She stopped on the journey at a shop and used a cash point. This blurry image was captured of her as she did that. The taxi then took her to her destination on Dartmoor, arriving around midday. She exited the taxi with Joshua and removed his car seat from the vehicle, carrying it with her. It's believed Kat and Joshua then slept rough that night at an abandoned quarry on the moor. The car seat would later be found at that quarry. On the morning of the 12th of July, around 11:50 am, Kat and Josh were seen by foreign tourists at the top of Hay Tor Rock. Kat was carrying Josh on her shoulders. Witnesses described her walking precariously close to the edge. Kat would then plummet around 100 feet from the imposing granite rock, with Josh still on her shoulders. As the pair laid on the ground, emergency services were called. The air ambulance would arrive to transport the pair off the moors to hospital. Unfortunately though, both Kat and Josh had died after the fall. Initially, the fall was treated by police as accidental. However, when police realised her youngest son Samuel was not with them, concern quickly grew. Police broke into the home on Duke's Close and discovered 2-year-old Samuel deceased in bed, with his covers pulled up beneath his chin. He was wearing a damp blue t-shirt and nappy. It's believed he had died the previous day. A note written by Kat was found in a book that revealed her troubled state of mind.
It's just really sad and
Everybody is totally shocked. Everybody in the square just can't believe what's happened.
Lovely people, get on with them really well because I have children myself. They all come out and play after school. It's just a tragic thing that what's happened yesterday. Nobody can believe it in the square, and everybody's just so devastated, absolutely devastated.
The news was of course devastating to friends and family, the local community, and Neil Patterson, who said of the deaths, "On Friday evening, I heard the devastating news that the three most important and cherished people in my life had been taken away from me." He would directly blame social services who were involved with Katharine and his children, feeling they didn't do enough to ensure the boys' well-being, claiming he had told them he feared for his son's safety after they were returned to Kat from being placed into care. However, a social media post by Neil himself before the children were returned to their mother slightly contradicts his claims. He posted that he was happy his children were going to be returned to Kat, saying that his sons had the most caring and loving mother in the world. Kat's death would be ruled as suicide, 5-year-old Josh's death as an unlawful killing, and 2-year-old Samuel's death was undetermined. Pathologists couldn't definitively determine the cause of death, though it was likely either drowning or suffocation. In August, the charges of alleged assault by Neil on Kat were subsequently dropped due to her death. Neil would go on to find a new partner, a woman by the name of Samantha Milson. In 2017, a now 54-year-old Patterson was again in trouble with police. This time, the allegation against him was that he held his terrified girlfriend captive at knife point after she ended their relationship. He would plead guilty, but was spared any jail time with a suspended sentence, on the grounds that he had been deeply affected by the death of Kat and his sons. A probation worker told the court they considered Patterson low risk, though he would be issued with a restraining order and ordered to undergo bereavement therapy. So then there is the question of whether Katharine Hooper was a monster or a victim. For me, it's probably both. She was a victim who committed a monstrous act. At just 17, she became under the control of a much older man, whose behaviour in getting with such a young partner could easily be seen as predatory. I have some sympathy for Neil Patterson and the loss he suffered with the death of his 2 sons, but he certainly contributed in the mental decline of Kat, and took her down a self-destructive path from a young age. A serious case review would later find the agencies involved with Kat and her 2 children could have worked more closely with her, but concluded that the deaths could not have been prevented. Katharine was a young mother who clearly struggled with her mental health issues, and I certainly wouldn't view her as a completely callous murderer. Though that all being said, it was Katharine who ultimately chose not only to end her own time on this earth, but that of Joshua and Samuel, the 2 boys who were the truly innocent victims in this horrific story.